Go.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning for those of you on the West Coast. Happy Friday. My name is Omar Duque. I'm the president of HITEC, coming to you from Chicago. Looking out my window, it's a beautiful day. It's been in the 90s here in Chicago the last couple of days. Certainly trying to enjoy this beautiful weather this week and hope that you are as well. We are incredibly excited to have today's session. We're incredibly excited to have one of our board members, Marcelo de Santis, who's an executive advisor in digital transformation for ThoughtWorks. He is a digital innovation leader transforming companies at the intersection of people, data, and technology. Prior to joining ThoughtWorks, he's a former CIO of Mondelez and the group CIO of Pirelli. Marcelo is here in Chicago, and so over the last several years that he's been involved with the HITEC board of directors, him and I had the chance to meet on a regular basis and connect both on the professional and personal level. He is one of the most sincere and genuine and thoughtful leaders that I have ever met. And he is somebody who I think both professionally and personally just has this drive and energy to always push to be his best self and help others find their best selves in everything that they do. He is an accomplished athlete. He is a triathlete. Him and I have participated in some races, although not all three, just the running events. He's also an experienced mountaineer. He's climbed Mount Everest once and was scheduled to climb Mount Everest earlier this year prior to everything really shutting down. And I'll mention this now, and maybe it's a challenge now. So in early March, Marcelo and I were supposed to get together and do an event, just the two of us, where we were gonna run 10 miles and climb 100 stories as a way to raise money for UNICEF, an organization that he is deeply involved in. We ended up having to cancel that event for obvious reasons, but look forward to the opportunity to be able to do that in whatever form or capacity we can. Marcelo, you always push me and drive me, and I'm incredibly excited for today's presentation around building a resilient business model. So I will turn it over to you, Marcelo de Santis.
Thank you very much, Omar. Thank you for the kind words during the introduction. For sure, we will climb those 100 stories. Maybe we should double the bet and climb 200, right? So, we have more time to train. So maybe that's a fair way of going forward. So hello, everyone. Really excited about connecting with the HITEC familia. These days we are living in a very strange situation, and connection is always good. It's always good to nurture our spirit and continue to build this great community. Before I tell you what I'm going to talk today, I just want to finish up with the introduction of my company, right? You might know I work for ThoughtWorks, as Omar said. ThoughtWorks is a technology consultancy company with global I would say footprint. We have more than 7,000 people across the world, and some characteristics of our companies. On one side is technology excellence, right? And we are very good at what we do, which is developing software specifically for companies that use technology as a core part of their business models. We call them digital natives. But also we have a large commitment to diversity, inclusion, and social impact. So you will always see us supporting causes of that sort, right? We are very, very vocal. We put our people to work pro bono for many organizations, and we're very proud of that. Last but not least, we like to write books. We think that knowledge is free, and we like to share what we know and what we think and how do we shape the future. So you're going to see many, many books here that you might be interested in reading. And I encourage you to read these books. And some of them have been written by those that originally created the Agile Manifesto. So very interesting company to be working for. So let's get to the topic of today. Resilient business models. Why the reason I choose this topic? Because as we exit COVID, I think we are all getting to the realization that our business models must be, I would say, modified to face whatever is coming after this. We are all living uncertain times. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So that, from the business standpoint, forces us to think, how do we make our business models flexible, resilient for whatever it comes, right? So during the next, I would say 30, 35 minutes, I want to do a presentation so we have time to talk. I'd like us to reflect on what is happening with this rapid migration to digital technologies as a result of COVID. I will share a point of view that we have in ThoughtWorks about how to build resilient business models. And last but not least, maybe the most important, leave enough time for us to interact. Okay, so let's do this. You have seen this cartoon, I think, 1 million times at this point, right? In different shapes or forms. And it has a sad part, and I will say, and a less sad part, right? On one side, is COVID is not good news for anyone, right? It's a very painful situation for humanity. But when we look at this with the lens of technology, as the result of the pandemic, right? We like it or not, many companies started to digitize to some degree their business models, right? They were pushed. The sad part of that business story is that it was in a reactive way, right? And those that we have been working in digital transformation for years and trying to evangelize people to be ahead of the curve, I mean, we feel on one side, I would say, happy that people understood it. But on the other side, it's like, I told you, right? I told you. So how is this happening? This is happening across the board, right? I had the opportunity to work in the last 18 months in ThoughtWorks with different sorts of companies, from traditional business, digital natives, large technology companies. And when you look what's happening today in the market, I mean, traditional companies that were considered more business to business are transitioning into business to consumer or business to consumer business models, right? Because that's the only way they have to continue to sell their services and products. Equally, we might think that digital natives don't have those issues. And I would say it is true because their technology architecture is much more flexible. However, we work with many of them, the size of Instacart or GrabHub, and they also being challenged because the peaking demand, put them to the limits of their ability to serve that demand, and they have to really rethink some part of the platform strategy. Last but not least, there are big winners out of this accelerated digitization. One of them, you know him. The picture is in the screen. Satya Nadella. He said, right, we have experienced 2 years worth of digital transformation in 8 weeks, right? And this is a result of many companies subscribing for collaboration tools, right? Software as a service and things like that. So this is happening across different types of businesses. Now, this is just a starting point, right? Customer expectations most probably have changed forever. There is a recent survey that I really recommend you to read. It's super recent. It's end of June 2020 from McKinsey that shows that there is between a 15 and 30% growth in consumers shopping online across different categories. I mean, if you look at the chart, you will find groceries, you will find apparel, medicines, entertainment, you name them, right? All of them have grew significantly. And if you think about that, and if you think that on average it takes 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic, I want to say that I'm very comfortable predicting that those numbers will carry forward in the post-COVID times. So definitely these changes are here to stay. So we are all leaders, technology leaders in your companies, right? I mean, whether you're working in a professional service company or in a large tech company or in an enterprise, you're CIOs, CTOs, heads of technology that are changing the way your company operates and structures their business models. My question to all of you is, do you feel that you're ready for the next move? So let me help with that question. There is no point in putting the question and do not offer some help. In ThoughtWorks, we have been working with digital natives and companies that wanted to transform to be more flexible for many, many years. I would say 15 plus. ThoughtWorks has 25 years, but in the last 15 years, we have been doing that. We have been doing that from the bottom up, meaning that we built those platforms from scratch for very, very large companies, including Apple, a lot of work with Uber or Lyft. So we got to understand how these companies not only use technology, but how do they operate, right? And as we were thinking about that, and as we were reflecting about our experience, we came with this concept of modern digital businesses, right? I mean, modern digital businesses, for us, in our definition, are those that are adaptive and resilient to changes in the marketplace, right? Typically, this business have the characteristics that you see in this chart. And I will go quickly across these characteristics. I like to explain this chart in the following way. On the left side, the first characteristic on the left side is customer value focus, right? I mean, all these companies drive their operations, their decision-making process based on customer value first, business benefit second. And I want to clarify that. I'm not saying that these companies don't want to be profitable or don't want to have a great balance sheet or they don't want to look at the financials. What I'm saying is when they have to make a decision, they use the customer feedback from their products and services as an indication of where do they have to invest and where do they have to grow or where do they have to pivot, right? That's all key characteristics of these kind of companies. On the other side of the chart, on the right-hand side of the chart, you can see that technology is considered a core capability of the business strategy. These companies don't look at the technology teams as support or enablers, right? Typically, you see the CEO is pretty technology savvy, if it is not the CTO in many cases, right? They really understand that technology is what moves their business forward and makes that business model responsive. So it has a very different place that you may see maybe more traditional organizations. Now, between customer orientation and technology at the core, there are many characteristics that are about how these companies operate, right? Some of them are, for example, they are outcome aligned in terms of success metrics and investment decisions are aligned to those customer outcomes. They are very responsive to market shifts. And the reason is that they work in smaller units of work, right? I mean, you're not gonna see in those companies 3-year plans for large big bang implementations. They really work in small increments. And the reason that they do that, going to the next characteristics, is that they have this culture of test and learn. So working in these small increments give them the opportunity to invest as much as they want, right? Prove their hypothesis, learn, And if things don't go well, they pivot and change the product in a different direction. And they do that regularly, right? They have this kind of muscle within the organization. Another thing they do very well is the access to data is very transparent. I mean, I'm coming from many, many years of traditional organizations in where you see data, I would say, captured in silos, right? When you go to any of these companies, the business metrics are extremely clear for everyone. You can access any kind of data across the organization. The data is a resource like electricity, right? It's just plug in, get the data you want, and make the decisions that you want to make. Last but not least, the structure and governance of this company is pretty different. I mean, there is a structure and there is governance for those that think that these digital natives don't have structures, even when they have flat organizations. There is a structure, there is governance. Now, there are guardrails, right? There is a space for people to actually make decisions as long as you are within the guardrails, right? And they push the decision making as close to the consumer or customer as possible, because they believe that that's where the work, the meaningful work that you do in a company happens. And if you push the decision making there, the people that are going to be doing that work are going to be getting the right feedback and be able to evolve the business going forward. So how do you, the second question we ask in ThoughtWorks is, how do you acquire these characteristics, right? Because these characteristics are not new. They have been in place for many, many years. So we came with this model of 5 building blocks, right? So when you look at these building blocks, what you need to think is look at these building blocks as containers of capabilities, right? These are containers in where you actually put capability, and it helps you and your organization to acquire many of those characteristics. So I start quick description of each of one. The first one is the operating model itself. Right? It's a frictionless operating model. Is a framework of strategic, operational, and governance processes that are responsive to market shifts. As I said before, the governance is extremely light. This is maybe the largest and most painful change that an organization that want to move and acquire these characteristics have to go through, because it requires any single function in the company to operate differently, any single function in the company to define success in a different way, and any single function in the company to understand that the strategy is not a process that you do every 3 years, but it's a strategy, is a process that you do maybe quarterly. And the input to the process is also coming from your customer feedback loop. So not all companies can make the leap into this frictionless operating model. The second building block is basically the platform strategy. And many of you, I know some of you work in Amazon Web Services here or PwC, you may be more familiar with this. This is basically architecture. Well, I mean, it's an architecture that is flexible. It's an architecture that is different to what we were doing many years ago, when companies were trying to get one solution off the shelf, in where we standardize everything. And yes, on one side, might have economies of scale, but with the amount of change that we see today in the marketplace, and specifically in customer expectations, changing that monolithic application, it takes time. And in some cases, not only time, but it might be close to impossible. So their platform architecture, the utilization of APIs, microservices, containers, obviously cloud. I mean, no doubt. I don't even mention cloud anymore. I think cloud is like electricity, right? I mean, David Olivenzi always says, if your business is not in the cloud, it's in the ground. And it is literally like that, right? But if you're not building those platforms well, you know, the rest of the characteristics are going to be impacted. The third pillar here is experience design and product capability. And this, given the context, you will understand that is becoming more relevant. because it's all about building experiences, right? If you're moving from B2B to B2C, you need to learn how to build experiences, design them, look at your customer journeys, understand what the friction points are, remove them, and do that many times with the right direct customer feedback, right? When I talk to large companies, they say, well, I'm B2B company, I will never need that. I say, well, it depends, because even if you're B2B, you have internal customers, which are your employees. So how are your employee journeys? How much friction do you have in your employee journeys? And as you reduce it or eliminate it, you get productivity for the people that work for you, right? So there is a little bit of a mindset change in certain of the conversations we're having. The next one is intelligence-driven decision-making. And this is like, we say, double-click on platform strategy, but very, I would say, focus on data, right? I mean, data that is available, maybe adopting the concept of data products, right? Versus, big monolithic data lakes or data warehouses, data products that evolve as a product as people need more information or different information. So you will see a lot of thinking from ThoughtWorks about something called, if you wanna Google this, data mesh, which is how do you structure an organization around data products, which is, it's a point of view very popular these days, and I'm proud that the team was the one creating that. Last but not least, software engineering excellence, right? This is about your technology team. So here, when you look at digital natives, typically they have a pretty solid technology team, right? I mean, because they're building these products. When you go to more traditional companies, we have typically outsourced most of the IT manpower, right, and capability. So now you are seeing that yes, some of the things that we outsource are still relevant to be, in the place they are outsourced, but we're also seeing companies bringing back software engineers, right, agile practitioners, product owners, right, those roles that are about the IT organization of the future. So these are the 5 building blocks. I describe them, at a very high level, but think about them again as containers for capability. So what's your next move, right? I mean, yeah, Marcelo, I understood the characteristics and the 5 building blocks. Thank you very much. Super nice theoretical framework. What do I do with this? Well, we also help companies with a tool, and I'm going to share the tool with you. It's free. As I said at the beginning, knowledge is free. If you want action, you need to call us, and it's a different conversation. But knowledge is free. We are open source supporters, and we also believe that offering knowledge to the industry is an important thing to do. So what you see in the screen is something we call the digital fluency model, right? I mean, this is a tool that helps companies basically to do 3 things, right? I mean, when we have these conversations, typically it's a conversation we have with the CIO, the CEO, the CMO, the C-suite. It's a conversation about reimagining the company, right? And we use this tool, which describes at the intersection of each building block and each level of fluency, it describes how does it look, a company that is executing, let me choose one, at the level of frictionless operating model. What does it look? So people say, well, I want my company to look like this in this building block. I want my company to look like this. So they define their aspiration, right? We have a team that really observe what is the current situation, and I want to make a distinction here. We typically don't do assessments. We don't ask people, how good do you think you are? We just send our people to see what you're doing, and we have a personal point of view, what is your current level of capability in that specific area. And obviously, once we have that, we do a strategic planning exercise like any other ones, in where we look at the gaps, we propose a roadmap, and we start to execute that in in a very, I would say, pragmatic way. We call it the thin slice. We really find a use case to make this aspiration a reality that cut across the enterprise. And we want to do it in a short period of time, so we really understand which are the antibodies in the organization that might be in the way of, achieving this ambition. As I said, there is a link. I know the team in HITEC is going to put it in the chat. This is a tool. You can access this tool in our website for free. It's anything to pay, no questions asked. It's 10,000, let me tell you something. It's not 10,000 feet, it's 40,000 feet. It's our beta version of the tool. You are not gonna learn anything extremely sophisticated, but it's gonna help you to think where your company wanna be and where you are, right? And really reflect around that. The tool is gonna give you some suggestions on investments to get to the level of ambition that you choose, but it's extremely, extremely high level. Honestly, I just want to say disclaimer that don't expect that it's gonna give you a solution, because actually it is unprofessional to say that we can give you a solution with a website, right? So this is your time to move. Your CIOs, CDOs, CTOs, leaders of technology companies. You want to change your companies to be more resilient in the future, more competitive, right? So I'm gonna finish with my, and I want to clarify this, right? My point of view on which are the 5 moves that will get you closer to a resilient business model. And the order is important, right? It's very general, but I do believe after working with many of these companies that many of those will apply to the companies that are in the call. So the first one is, as customer experiences become more relevant, you need to be able to map those customer journeys, right? And remove those friction points. And as I said before, if you're not a B2C company, which you will end up being a B2C company, believe me, you don't have to believe me, just look at the statistics that I showed you before. Do it at least with your employees. Do it at least with the stakeholders of your ecosystem, because that will give you productivity. That will give you employee engagement in some cases, right? Now, if you are a business B2C company, you might be doing this, but it's a capability that you need to have in-house, right? The second thing is, no surprise, once you have that, if your platform strategy is not up to the challenge, you're not going to be moving forward as you think you should, right? So review your system architecture. This is the right time to look at the system architecture with a completely different paradigm, right? The business environment changed. The way that consumer, customers, stakeholders connect with our company services and products completely changed. So if you don't look at your architecture with those lenses, and you are not able to articulate the value of architecture to achieve business outcomes, you're going to be in a difficult situation if you are the CTO to deliver on the ambitions of the rest of the C-levels colleagues, right? Number 3 is break out the silos in where data is residing today, if any, right? I'm sure many of you have done that before, but start to use different techniques, right? It's not about big data warehouses, centralized data warehouses, or even data lakes, right? We are big in supporting data products and data product teams, and really start those data product teams with a sense of business value, right? Which are the information assets that will move the top line of my company or the bottom line of my company. Can I isolate them in a data product? Can I continuously improve them? And as I continually improve them, they deliver more business value to the business that I'm running. Number 4 is, as I said before, right? We typically, large companies, we outsource a lot of, I would say, technical expertise. This is the time to bring it back. You cannot be a modern digital business in where you have platforms and you're iterating products and without having software engineers in your team, without having engineering practices that are modern, right? I mean, it's not only cloud, migrating to the cloud is taking advantage of what cloud can do to deliver those products, right? To make those products flexible, to use, in certain cases, microservices if your company needs them. Not all the companies need microservices, right? I was with a client 3 months ago and he said, I need microservices. I said, why? I said, well, I see all the companies are using microservices, but maybe your business doesn't need that. And I didn't, right? And we knew that, right? But so another thing is to not believe all the buzzwords because there are many, right? So be careful with the architecture that you define for your company. And last is the operating model. Even if you have the first four in place, if finance doesn't go to the speed that you need to approve additional investments for the products that you're developing, or legal is not up to the challenge to actually review any IP or any legal challenge at the speed that you need to run a sprint or a product cycle, you are not going to make it. So what I'm saying here is review across the company all those governance processes and internal operational processes that you actually need to really deconstruct, right? And construct back in alignment with the speed that you want to run, right? So this is by far the most difficult challenge for companies to transform. Plus is the first, or maybe I would say the top reason why many transformations fail, right? So I think I finished with that. Again, those are my personal point of view on the recommendations. Some of my colleagues in ThoughtWorks will disagree because we're very opinionated, right? And they will disagree with Marcelo. This is coming from the experience in large companies and startups in the last, maybe 15 years. So having said that, have anything else? I think I used 30 minutes, so we can have 30 minutes for a dialogue.
Hey, Marcelo, Carlos Rojas here. Is it okay if we start with a quick question I have for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So as a former EEP, participant on the HITEC, familia here, and now representing, Amazon as a builder of global automation, making sure that our business is resilient, right? And our teams are resilient. I mean, your topic is very important. I love the fact that you have building blocks, but I was wondering, as you were explaining the building blocks, if for a brand new team, a brand new company, or for an existing company, you can define what is the most important building block, because the approach might be different, right? If you have a brand new business, you focus on something different than if you have been around for 20 years. So what's your take on the most important building block based on that?
Well, Carlos, it's a very difficult question to answer because it depends on the context of the company. But if I have to choose one that is typically a challenge, is going to be the operating model, right? Because you will get someone that will fix your platform. You can hire the most brilliant software engineers, right? You might be able to destroy the data silos with time and resilience. But changing the way the company operates, not within IT. Let me tell you, it's across the enterprise. It's a large endeavor, right? And without that, you cannot run fast. So I would say, in a new company and in an established company, it's always a challenge for different reasons. In a large company, because the process is very mature and the ability to change is, I don't want to change things like that, right? But in a smaller company, it's because they're too small, right? And there might be one person that is wearing 16 hats, right? And So it might become a little bit more territorial, the decision-making process. So I would say that one, and for those two reasons.
Yeah, I thought about, making sure that the experience of the customer comes in first was the most important thing, right? But yeah, I debated between the ones, all of them are valid. So, good points in there. Thank
You're welcome.
for the presentation. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Carlos.
Marcelo, we have a couple of questions in the chat that I'll read out loud, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
So the first one is from Angela Cruz. She unfortunately had to leave, but she said she's going to come back and see the recording to get the answer. She's a HITEC EEP mentor and an IT veteran for 33 years, and she helps entrepreneurs and small businesses with their digital transformation strategies. Her question was, how long does it take to drive the transformation like the one that you just described?
So, I mean, these transformations are not things that happen, I would say, in a short period of time. So to be, to focus on the answer of your question is, obviously it depends on the company, but anything happens in less than 18 to 24 months, right? And when I'm saying this, it's not the total transformation, because I don't believe that you never finish with the transformation, right? I mean, you change the company to become a always on transformation mindset, right? But to get to that place, as you look at the different building blocks that you need to invest, anything is going to happen in less. Even if you choose one thing slice to that, might take 3 to 6 months, and there might be some enablers that you need to put ahead. So these are 1.5 to 3 year programs, right? So anything less than that, it will be, in my experience, I haven't seen anything faster than that, right? That is really tangible, and the business can say, yeah, I can see the business value, right? I can see, the top line growing or the bottom line growing. So yeah, less than that, it will be difficult to achieve, in my humble point of view.
Thank you. We also have, I'm going to jump in with a second question, and it's from Mike Cáceres, an EP fellow as well. And he is asking us, or he says, I think these recommendations apply to all of the companies, not only business to consumers. In your experience, have you found that B2B companies are less likely to embrace these concepts than business to consumer companies?
I think they're not less likely to accept this kind of transformation, but it takes more time, right? Because the mindset of customer value might not be in place, as Carlos was saying, right? I mean, that's the big shift for companies to be driven by customer value versus just revenue and profit. Again, I'm not saying that those are not important. What I'm saying is primarily driven by customer value. So it's typically B2B companies more difficult, but applies for both, right? I mean, as I said before, you can apply this model for your internal operations. If you're a B2B company and you have a moderate growth that is in the single digits, right? And the only way in a mature market, right, pricing, it's almost a commodity. You need to work on your bottom line, right? So this model helps you to map journeys internally in your company to make your company more productive, faster, right? A pleasure to work for your employees at the end of the day. So you save money, your employees are more engaged, and you win. So there are different ways of using this framework, even if you're not a B2C company.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
I have another question I can ask, but I'm going to leave it open if there's anybody that wants to jump in here. I don't want to be the only one asking questions.
Hi, this is Herman. I have a question. Marcelo, thanks for your presentation. Just wanted to say, you always hear culture eats strategy for lunch. And I wanted to ask you as far as, what kind of tactics do you use to influence culture to bring them along for a digital transformation?
Good question. So I think there are two steps, right? Maybe three steps. A transformation like this, if you don't have your CEO and in some companies the board supporting, I don't want to say it's impossible, but yeah, you're heading to turbulent waters, right? I mean, so you got to make sure that your CEO is a company transformation, right? And the board understands the complexity, and the board understands the effort, and the board understands that there might be, some ups and downs, right? This is not going to happen in a quarter. This is not, if you're in a quarter by quarter company, you need to establish, you need to structure the transformation to give people some results to show, but eventually it will happen, but will not happen. So I think alignment with the CEO and the C-suite is extremely important. Now, once you have that, how do you ignite the transformation? I have a point of view coming from experience, where I've seen, I failed doing it one way, and then I succeed doing it the second iteration. I think I learned, right? I still have the bruises here on my shoulder, right? Top-down mandated transformations, they're either too slow or they fail. I think is the top-down guidance that you have for the transformation and the bottom-up empowerment. To your point of culture, it's strategy for lunch. It's totally true. But now there is a paradigm in that statement. Is that culture is a monolithic thing in a company? It's not. If you present the transformation to a company, you will have people that is against, people that is on the fence, and people that are extremely eager to jump into the transformation. So if you are able to find the third group, no matter where they are, and this is a change, it doesn't matter if a person is in your team, in marketing, in finance, it might be across a company, the more the merrier, the more cross-functional the merrier, the better. If you combine that with the top-down guidance and empowerment, I think that's where the rest of the organization will feel the sandwich effect, right? There's a clear guidance from the top, and there is these, next generation leaders that are pushing from the bottom up. And that's where you start to see traction in big transformation efforts, right? So that's number two. The number three I was going to suggest is, we in ThoughtWorks, we believe in what we call the thin slice, meaning that in a transformation, we'll never do something that takes 18 months up until you see something. We will find a thin slice across, cut across the organization. We will, invest in those building blocks, making it happen in order to really understand how the organization reacts, how the customers react, right? How easy is to distort the current platform strategy we have and build a new one, right? So we build slices, right? And we build one slice, we learn, we pivot or not. We build the second slice, maybe larger. And as you get more comfortable, your slices are becoming a little bit more thicker, right? But never stopping to do it in an iterative way, right?
All right, well, I have another question I can throw out there. Marcelo, if you're ready.
Yes. That's the best part of this is the best part of the webinar.
So this question comes from Lucas Ferroni from Oracle. He's also an EEP Plus fellow. When you walk us over the 5 building blocks for capabilities containers, and you mentioned data-driven organizations, decisions, data security and risk management come to mind, especially considering current trends from government to regulate, like HIPAA, GDPR. While it seems to be included in the boxes, do you think that an individual box will be needed in the future for security and data management?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you something. It's I always get this question. Marcelo, there is no security building block in your 5 building blocks, right? And I tell you why. Because if you read our books from many, many years ago, we do believe, you know, the DevOps movement, we always believe that security doesn't have to be an afterthought. At the moment that you build software or a solution, security is at the beginning. At the beginning is security, the dev and ops, right? So there are many colleagues that want to add security framework around the 5 building blocks, which I think we will. You know, I mean, our marketing colleagues are maybe working on that as we speak. But I just want to make sure you understand. For us, security, it is in all the pillars. To me, it's like you know, it's a foundational capability that there is security for data, there is security in the platform, there is security in the way you develop, test, and put in production software. There is security in your frictionless operating model. Are we making the right decisions? You know, is the data that we use to make the decisions the right data? Because we are betting the future of the company. So the answer is not called out, but in the philosophy that we use in ThoughtWorks to transform companies, for us, security is in all the building blocks.
Thank you, Marcelo. Any other questions out there? Or comments?
Or disagreements. Those are the, yeah, those are very fun, right? So disagree and disagree with this. That's how I learn, selfishly.
Right? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, Marcelo, mil gracias for this presentation and taking your time. Marcelo didn't mention before, but he's been working on tons and tons of workshops and sessions and sharing his insights with folks. So we're really appreciative of his time with us today. So thank you so, so much. We're gonna have you back because we're gonna have Marcelo back. We were talking about this earlier this week to share his philosophies that he's learned from his adventures in mountaineering. So we want him back for those perspectives as well. So we're going to get you back on. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Omar, Viviana, Salina. Thank you, team. Thank you for the questions. I mean, anything you need, you know how to get a hold of Marcelo. So happy to help you. Stay safe, engage, hopeful, and to the future.
Gracias.
Thanks, Marcelo. Have a good one. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you, Marcelo.
Thank you, everybody. Please stay tuned for next week's session. We're going to have a Wellness Wednesday to talk about a little bit about finding your inner peace. And then Revitcher is going to talk to us about how folks are, in terms of students and employers, and how we can help build that pipeline. So please be sure to join in next week as well. There's a survey that will be going out to help us facilitate that dialogue, which is super helpful. So please check that out. But thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend and happy Friday, everybody. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.